What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Today's Best Served Podcast 377. Very excited. We're talking to Ji Hye Kim of Miss Kim on Korean ancestors, restaurant pop-ups, and a James Beard nomination. As always, also get into the comments and go and check out 6 questions with Ji Hye Kim so you can learn a little bit more in that amazing conversation. We got to learn a little bit about fermentation. Absolute fermentation nerd here, so I was very excited about that. Some misconceptions about Korean cuisine, as well as chef as a second career, which I think is fascinating as well. So make sure and check that out. And as always, we're here every single week, Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Mountain. All right, let's bring in Ji Hye Kim now. Here we go. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Oh, you got me fired up, right? Just for everyone, a little glimpse behind the scenes, right? We do these video casts, but before that, we do the 6 questions, and so I get really energized. And you blew my mind talking about the importance and prioritizing fair wages. So everybody, again, huge plug to go check out that blog post. Really good stuff there. But let's talk about Miss Kim, the concept itself. Give us a little bit of the kind of the background, how it came about, and then we'll talk about, again, Korean ancestors. Love that. I want to talk about restaurant pop-ups as a vehicle to be able to start your concept, and then the James Beard Foundation nomination, which I think is an important aspect, not the award itself, but the acknowledgement of what you're trying to build. So let's get into that. But tell us about Miss Kim first.
Okay, Miss Kim is a restaurant in Ann Arbor. We say that our food is inspired by Korean ancestors and Michigan farmers. So we take inspiration from everywhere. And, I'm not a classically trained chef, so I looked at historical documents a lot. And if you study any like Korean cuisine, but also any like cuisine with long history, it will tell you that where you are is really important, and drawing from seasonal produce that's available to you is really important. So then I take that wisdom from my Korean ancestors, and then I look around to see what we have from Michigan farmers, and then those two things come together and show up on our menu.
That's so great. It's a lens to look through, right? I think that's sometimes important. We focus too much what's on the plate, and for you, it's like why and who is so much more important. And I really like that too, because saying Korean cuisine and then Michigan farm to table, that seems like an oxymoron. It seems like they'd be at odds with each other. The way that you're bringing that together very seamlessly and thoughtfully, really, really appreciate that. And so, Korean ancestors, what does that mean to you when you're looking back at what your own ancestors or your general Korean ancestral heritage like brings to the culinary world? What are some of those things? Because we talked about it. It's not monolithic. It's not just spicy grilled meat with kimchi. There's so much more diversity. So channel that for us. Channel the ancestors for a moment. What do they want us to know about Korean cuisine?
Yeah, I think
That's a
first thing
heavy
I
question,
do,
I know.
it's a lot, but I'm gonna try to cover it and then not be super long-winded like I
Yeah,
usually am. Okay, so
you
I think
go.
in a big scheme of things, food is just fascinating because I think you need to understand it's like a big story, right? I think of it as a big story time. And when I take a day in my life and then I think if I this is asparagus and ram season right now in Michigan. So if I want to take asparagus, which is not native to Korea, what would I do with it? Or what if I chopped it into like a rice cake dish, which is traditionally Korean? Like, what is the story behind that? What allows me to use asparagus, this sort of foreign produce, into a traditional dish? Then what I need to do is understand the story of that dish. So I like look at the story of the dish, go back as far as I can in all the reproductions of ancient cookbooks from like few centuries ago, and then I understand that now it's known as a quintessential street food, but back then it was a rich people food because rice
Right.
is expensive and it used to have like 20 ingredients in them. A lot of it is produce that's available in season. And so then I need to understand that part of like the sort of like a starting point per se that I can find, and then how it evolves throughout the centuries. So if there's a rice cake dish that's coming from 18th century, what did it look like in the 19th century? What did it look like in the 20th century when the Korean War happened? And rice was not as available, and Korea was back then struggling poor country. Did we use rice or did we use wheat because it's cheaper?
Mhm.
And what did the street vendors do? Did they use tons of expensive ingredients like they used to do before, or they started adding gochujang in to bring up a lot of flavor without having to add a lot of produce? So then it's impossible to take this simple dish that's known as like a quintessential street food. It's really cheap in Korea, and then not understand the story of Korean people and story of Korean food. And then I have to kind of channel that through my experience as a Korean American immigrant living in Michigan, and think like, if I were to add just one sentence to this long story that's fascinating of Korean food and Korean American food, then what would I add? And then I think I would work with Michigan farmers and add what's available here to that story. And if I were to have a restaurant not in Michigan, maybe if it was in California, it would look different. If it were in Korea, it'd be looking different. And I think that like that's totally fine as long as you tell that story, you understand that story, and you do it thoughtfully. So that's sort of like a long-winded answer that I try to encompass everything.
Amazing answer. Look, you're Ji Hye, you're clearly a philosopher and a storyteller, and food just happens to be your medium. And I think that is what makes for a great chef. That's the future of us. It's not because we are badasses in the kitchen and can pump out 400 plates and all the technique and stuff. Like, that's the barrier for entry. Perhaps what you're talking about is more important. It's not fusion. You're taking the next logical and emotional step for yourself and your people, be it your ancestors or your current community. That's it.
Yeah,
And
for this moment in time, right where I am. Yeah.
Exactly that. And the story is not properly punctuated. It's just a lot of commas because it continues to go and evolve. There is no end to that sentence like you're talking about. It has to continue to evolve. So, I love it. I don't know what we're going to talk about next. Were we going to talk about anything next? Yes. Let's talk about restaurant pop-ups. So much of our audience, we're really trying to empower the future leaders of our industry and give them the tools and understanding that a lot of us didn't have, because we were so focused on only what goes on the plate that we didn't understand what it meant to open a business. We were so focused on opening the brick and mortar restaurant. You took a different path, again, starting as a second career, but then you went into pop-ups. You went to look at like, let me play around a little bit. Or as you said, I'm going to fuck around a little bit and find that sweet spot. I think more people need to start with pop-ups. They need to have lower risk when they start a little bit before they go and sign a lease and put themselves $250,000 in debt and yada, 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 all that stuff. Restaurant pop-ups. What did you do? Why was it important? Why do we need to have restaurant pop-ups as a vehicle for starting your concept?
Yeah. I mean, this sounds like nuts when I think of it now, and I'm 44. Back then I was 27, 28, 29. I was just like, oh my God, I am too old to be starting in the restaurant industry. I got to find a way so that I don't have to go to culinary school and I don't have to be a kitchen slave peeling artichokes for like 6 months in a row without getting paid as an unpaid intern. Like, what can I do? And I was looking for, basically, like, just like you said, I was going to fuck around and find out. Yeah. And I was looking for a way to sort of like play house without having the house, right? So pop-up was a natural thing. I think the pop-ups, especially with the pandemic, has gotten so much easier, and I really recommend people to do that. Back then, like 7 years ago, when I was doing it in Ann Arbor, I was just simply trying to run a business, like, even if I was just selling 10 buns a day, and then I took money in for that. Like, I wanted to know, like, what was my top line sales, what was my food cost, how much did I actually spend on the ingredients, how many hours did I put in, and I didn't have to pay rent, but I had to pay like something for the hosting place. Then, like, in the end, did I make money or not? So I was running those numbers and doing inventory once a month, basically playing restaurant at sort of somebody else's dime because it was
Mhm.
somebody else's facility. And I think the opportunities to do pop-ups are wonderful that way because you can make it as complex as a brick and mortar restaurant and do your work, like do the recipe work. Don't just pull something out of your bum. Like write it down in grams, in volume, and see if that
See.
works. And if it doesn't work, just change one ingredient and then try it again and try it again. You're thinking of it as like a research and development phase for the next big thing you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And have fun because you're not paying rent. You're not paying utilities. Your friends are probably helping you. I would still count the hours to make sure how many hours of labor went in.
Mhm.
But this is time to have fun and like be carefree and not have bills, as many bills, and then just really go for it. And I think the guest expectations for pop-ups very different than guest expectations for brick and mortar that's open like
Right.
5 to 6 days a week. So you can have fun with it. I have my food, even if the menu was different.
Oh,
And
so good. Here's a couple things I want to unpack for everybody who's watching, listening to this. We menu test all the time. Why don't we financials and business test? Because that's what you're talking about, is like really allowing yourself at a lower risk to be able to move numbers around, to be able to make mistakes when the stakes aren't as high. So I think that's really important for people to understand. You're building a brand. Like you're starting to connect with your potential customers, your community, the audience that you're going to have in the long term. So I think that's really important opportunity, and you get to interact with them because it's smaller. You might be open one day a week. Go find that restaurant in your town that's closed on Sunday and Monday. Get in there, like be able to do that. I think is really important. So I appreciate that. And you were able to do that with the iconic Zingermans, then became part of your backing, right? Again, article, learn about Zingerman's, first job for you, who are, I mean, absolute staples of the Ann Arbor scene and have been for so long. So I think that really helps to have that kind of support, which again was what we're trying to create. We need more support. We need more mentors and information out there so we can make decisions in this industry. And so all of that led you to now, congratulations, a James Beard, nomination. That's such an acknowledgement for the work that you've done. I'm sure you never imagined that when you started at 27 in the deli at Zingerman's. What does that mean for you personally, for your community, for your team, for the ancestors? Like, give us an idea of what that acknowledgement means.
well, I just want to first clarify it's a long list, so
Of course.
so I still have ways to go. But I try not to take it too seriously and hold it close to my heart without bragging or like not to get it to my head and then develop a big ego or something, because I still think that I'm still on a journey to do more and better.
You're still writing that sentence. Yes.
Yeah, we're still writing that sentence. We're still in the middle of telling that story. But if I were to take a pause and think about it, I think it is amazing that, Ann Arbor is not a big city.
Right.
And we're not in like DC or New York or LA. And so my first reaction was really like, they know I exist. Yeah. That was my first reaction, and it was really unbelievable for a while. And on a personal level, it's sort of like a nod. It's like an acknowledgement. I was like, we see you. Yeah, we see what you're trying to do. And also that it's okay that we're not doing fine dining in any way. But we're also not like a college town, $12 an hour entree, every ingredient coming from Cisco, menus the same from one restaurant to another restaurant to another restaurant.
Yeah.
We're trying to do something a little different and pay homage to where we are in Michigan. So on a personal level, to have that acknowledged almost feels as though, like, I don't want to sound super sentimental, but like,
go there.
Yeah, I'll go there. What the fuck? Yeah, I'll go there. Yeah. I mean, if you are a minority and you're like an immigrant, then you think about your identity a lot. And me, like, I wasn't born here. I came here when I was 13, so I was old enough to really think about that. And then the change was shocking enough because it's not like I was born here and then I slowly grew into it. It's just like a sort of like a big change. So in like a very sentimental way that I don't want to admit very openly, is like sort of acknowledging like, hey, you're Korean and you're American and you're Michigander, and that's all okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. Don't worry, it's just you and me talking, so you don't have to.
Sure,
That's
sure.
that's
Just
that's
you and me.
exactly right. There is a level of acknowledgement and acceptance, but for you, it's like you are finding that in yourself, and now you're seeing that echoed by others, and that absolutely feels good and right, and it should. And there's so many other people that go into that for you. You know, again, fair wages. Check out the article. I feel like I'm plugging this article really heavy because I was super inspired by you. So that's exactly it. You're investing in your community and people differently because your ancestors invested in getting you here. So I love everything that we're talking about. Really appreciate this. Ji Hye Kim, thank you so much for the inspiration you've given me personally. I know Ann Arbor is so behind you, and now now you have a national platform as well. So keep doing what you're doing, and you and I are going to talk a lot more, I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you
All
so
right,
much for having
have
me
a great
here.
rest of your day. Cheers.
You too.
All right, everyone, that is it. Ooh, Ji Hye Kim, absolute visionary leader and such an important voice for our industry. So once again, this was Best Served Podcast 377. We got to talk to Ji Hye Kim of Miss Kim, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Yes, absolutely on the culinary map. Going to help push us forward in the future of this industry that needs to be equitable, profitable, sustainable, and tell stories. I want all of you think about that. What's the story you're going to contribute? What's the sentence that you're going to contribute to the culinary narrative? That's it. Appreciate you all. Cheers.